In these tremendously trying times, I think it's even more incumbent upon us to remember our dear friend Paul Forman. Paul was like a rock. He was somebody that no matter what, dealt with everybody around him with respect, humility, and tremendous midot. He was somebody who was always there for everyone. Anyone who came asking for his help, he would be there and he would get it done. And that's the type of attitude, and that's the type of stature, and that's the type of way that we should conduct ourselves, especially in these extremely trying times. And to be able to learn from Paul's midot, and to be able to learn from his lessons that he taught us as a community in these times, I think is even more important for us to focus on. And therefore, as a community, even though everyone is in their own homes and everyone is dealing with this in their own way, we decided to come together virtually and learn together Pirkei Avot. Pirkei Avot teach us that the foundations for everything that we do, everything that we believe in, is being first and foremost a mensch, somebody who's humble, somebody who's caring, somebody who doesn't just look at themselves, but look at how they can help others. And that's the basis for everything that Paul did in his life. And so we can take these lessons and move forward with them and hopefully be able to continue his legacy. The first Mishnah on Pirkei Avot is a fascinating Mishnah because it describes the continuation of Torah learning from Moshe all the way down to the Anshe Knesset Gedolah. And the words that it uses is fascinating because there are two places where it changes the language. The Mishnah starts and says, Moshe kibel Torah misinai, umasra liYehoshua. Then it says, v'Yehoshua liskenim, v'skenim l'neviim, umasru l'anshei knesset hagdolah. What's interesting is that it's some of the changes, some of the passing on the Torah uses just a simple, and they pass to them, and they pass to them, and they pass to them. However, in two places, he uses the language of Masura, and they transmitted, and they passed it over from Moshe to Yehoshua and from the Nevi'im to the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah. The reason for this is because during those time periods, there was a transition. There was a difference between the time that came before and the time that came afterwards. There was a change in the way that Torah was transmitted. And that was because Moshe, first and foremost, received the Torah directly from God, and then he passed it over to Yehoshua, and Yehoshua had to take the ball and live in a different way. And what's interesting is that you see in the Gemara in Tmura, where the Gemara discusses when Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, nobody knew what to do. They forgot thousands of halachot, the Gemara says. And they asked Yehoshua, go, ask Hashem. Ask Hashem what we should do, just like Moshe used to. Continue the legacy of Moshe Rabbeinu. Yehoshua says we have to continue that legacy. However, there's a transition going on. And that transition means that we have to learn Torah in a little bit of a different way because we're no longer in that same stature as Moshe was, that same relationship of panim el panim that Moshe was with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And he says, Lo b'shamayim hi, we have to figure out ourselves. And they looked through pilpul and through analysis, they were able to come to the answers of all those halachot. There was a transition. So too, from the time of the Nevi'im to the time of the Anshe Knesset Gedolah, there was a transition. The same Torah, but it was passed on in a transitionary way. And therefore, the Mishnah points out these transitions that was passed on to the Anshe Knesset Gedolah. It was trying times. And I think that for me personally, Paul was that transmitter. When I came and joined Mizrahi, it was going through a transition, a rejuvenation. And Paul was there in order to connect the past and the present. And he was there in order with tremendous anava. It's not an easy thing to work together with somebody so much younger than you. But Paul knew how to give me the leadership and the skills and the support to be able to take Mizrahi and to be able to help try to rejuvenate it. And Paul was always there to be that connection between the past and the present and the future. And that takes tremendous anava. And I always look up to Paul and always thank him for the lessons in humility and caring and being able to get things done in such a way where it's done in the right way and not only just to get it done in the future. And something so special about who he was, to be able to look at a transition and to be able to pass on the Masorah from one generation to the next. And when the Mishnah continues and says the Anshe Knesset Gedolah enacted three things. They said there are three basic elements that we need to keep in mind during these trying times. And those are, have a mitunim bedim, be careful in judgment. Number two, hemidu tamidim arbe, have a lot of students. And number three, asu siyag laTorah, make a fence around the Torah. Now Rashi, on his explanation on the Pirkei Avot, he explains that what the Anshe Knesset Agdola were trying to do was to tell us how could we make sure that the Torah continues, to mekayim the Torah, to establish the Torah for the next generation. The Jewish people had just returned back from the first exile. It was trying times. It was difficult times. The Anshe Knesset Agdola came together and said, how can we make sure that the Torah lasts forever? And therefore they said these three things. Having mitunim bedim. Don't rush. Always think about things clearly in order to get them done. Number two was have lots of students, therefore make sure that there'll be lots of people to pass on the Masorah. And number three is to make sure that you asu siyag la Torah, to protect the Torah, and therefore the Torah will be able to last forever. And those are the three things that Anshe Knesset Gedolah focused on. But I think there's another message, and the Rabbeinu Yonah explains that specifically by the advice of Amidu Tamidim Rabbi. He says that what the Mishnah is trying to tell us is against another opinion. There was an argument between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, whether or not who should learn in the Beit Midrash. Should it be just the scholars, or should it be every individual? Beit Shammai said it should be just the scholars. Beit Hillel says it should be anyone. Everyone's invited to come learn. And Rabbi Gamliel took the side of Beit Shammai, and he said only people are tochu kibara, only people who have reached the highest levels of perfection, only the greatest people should be allowed in the Beit Midrash. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah took Beis Hillel's opinion, and he added benches to the Beit Midrash when he became the Nasi, in order to make sure that everybody would have the opportunity to learn. And I think Paul took that midah of being able to look, and no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter your stature, no matter how you act, no matter how you don't act, he was always there to help you. Even if you were rude, even if you spoke to him in a not nice way, even if you weren't the most perfect of human beings, he would always be there for you. Whether or not you come from one background, whether or not you were considered important, whether you're not considered just a random person off the street, everybody was invited into Paul's heart. And that mindset of caring about every individual is how the Masorah is passed on. That's how our Jewish community stays strong. That's how every institution that Paul was part of is able to thrive and able to be strong, from B'nai Torah to Mizrahi to everything else that he was involved in. And that is the mindset that Paul had. First and foremost, the humility to avi metun bedin, to think about things fully and not just jump, haste, and pull the trigger. Second of all, to treat every human being as if they're invited into the Beit Midrash, into our community. And number four is asu siyag la Torah, to be caring about the Torah, to keep it with tremendous commitment and care. And those three midot are what allowed our Torah to continue on for generations. And those are the things that Anshe Knesset Gedolah say are what holds us together. And those are the midot that I take in my heart from Paul, who will be able to teach me about the humility and the care for every individual, for our community, and making sure to think things through before jumping the gun. Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll be able to get through these times and be able to continue Paul's legacy in our community for many, many, many more years.